Hi everybody, Mike Petraglia alongside WEEI.com Patriots columnist Chris Price. Chris, they did what they were expected to do. The Patriots came in to Gillette Stadium today and put up 41 points, beat the Houston Texans 41-28 in the much anticipated rematch of their December 10th blowout of the Texans. It was a lot closer game, and certainly a lot of things took place that we're going to go over right now. First of all, Patriots took care of business, and they did so with a couple of key injuries to their offense early on. The first couple of drives, they lose Danny Woodhead to a sprained left thumb in the first drive of the game. Then, of course, Rob Gronkowski re-injures his left forearm. The reports are he'll need surgery again. He is done for the playoffs. But the Patriots turned to a couple of different options in their offense, one of which would be Shane Vereen.
It was really interesting to watch the way they evolved offensively throughout the game. They had some setbacks, and they were able to deal with them. They were able to get more Vereen into the lineup. We saw a lot of Michael Humano-Inui, who has really come on strongly. Thank you. Has really come on strongly over the last 6 to 8 weeks. His role has started to increase more and more. Obviously, a lot of that is because Gronkowski was on the shelf, but he's really become an unsung hero, one of the more important parts of this team. I think we're going to see more of him going forward. Obviously, he doesn't have the same kind of impact that Gronkowski does, but again, he's going to be a guy who's going to get a lot of snaps as a result of Gronkowski's injury. But again, offensively, they evolved. They changed a little bit. They shook a few things up. Again, we saw a lot of Vereen. We saw a lot of Human. We saw a lot of Ridley as well, although that wasn't unexpected. But the adjustments that they made offensively were more than enough in the end to win this game.
Obviously, all week long, we're going to be talking about the rematch with the Baltimore Ravens. The first time since the 86-87 AFC Championship when the Browns and Broncos got together. Both games won, of course, by the Denver Broncos. But before we get to that, previewing that rematch, we have to talk about some of the things in this game that certainly send up a red flag. And Chris, that would have to be special teams. The opening kickoff returned by Daniel Manning, 94 yards to the Patriots' 12-yard line. The Patriots D steps up big time, holding the Texans to just 3 points there. Then there was the kickoff return midway through the second quarter. It set up eventually Houston's first touchdown of the game. How concerned are you, how alarmed are you about the continuing troubles of the Patriots coverage unit on special teams?
They had a pretty good year statistically when you look at the entire bulk of their work over the course of the season. They had a pretty good year when it came to kick coverage. There were some breakdowns along the way. There were some breakdowns today. I think that's something they need to tighten up going into the AFC Championship game. Baltimore doesn't have a terrific return unit, but as we saw in the divisional playoff game between the Ravens and the Broncos, the return man can really screw things up for you, particularly for if you're the Baltimore Ravens in that one. So it's the kind of thing you need to get locked down going forward. I don't think it's a huge issue. I want to see, I want to take a good look at the film before make a definitive statement on that, but I don't think it's anything big, and I don't think it's anything you can't fix going forward.
Obviously, the big story this week will be how the Patriots adjust to life without Gronk. We almost know, certainly now, he's not going to be available for the rest of the playoffs. The Patriots were able to get to the Super Bowl last year. Gronk obviously sprained his ankle in the AFC Championship this very game last season, and he was not as effective in the Super Bowl. But now, what do the Patriots do? They don't have Gronk. Human, who's probably injured significantly after the game as well. I saw him walking out of the locker room with a pronounced limp in his left leg. It seemed to be a knee injury of some sort. What do the Patriots do now going forward against the Ravens offensively?
I think you go with what you got. You had a guy today in Wes Welker who had a phenomenal performance. I think he's one of the guys you ride. I think that running game in particular, I was very impressed again by the performance of Shane Vereen, coming away with 3 touchdowns, tying a franchise record for most touchdowns in the postseason. He had a great performance, and I think he gives you a different dynamic out of the backfield. I want to see Danny Woodhead where he is when the injury report is released on Wednesday. The first injury report of the week is released on Wednesday. I think that's going to be a really important thing for this offense, particularly without Gronkowski going forward. But you have more than enough options around you. Brandon Lloyd stepped up today, made a couple of nice catches. So it's going to be a process, and they're going to have to figure things out, what works, what doesn't work against Baltimore. One of the nice things for them is they played Baltimore earlier in the year. They already have a bit of a blueprint on how to attack.
3 defensive players, Chris, I'd like to touch on today that had huge games, in my opinion. Rob Ninkovich with the key interception when Houston was driving for a touchdown that would have made it a one-score game in the third quarter. Aqib Talib was, I thought, spectacular today, especially finishing tackles. in open space. That's obviously very important against an explosive offense with guys like Andre Johnson, and then Devin McCourty with the big stand late in the game to keep Houston out of the end zone.
I think the Ninkovich play, Ninkovich just has a way of coming up with the big plays at the big times, and I think we've seen that over the course of the last 2 years here in New England. He has a way of coming up big with the game on the line. In this case, that's get too dramatic about it, with the season on the line, he was able to step up, make a great play, and really help turn the tide back in New England's favor. Looked like Houston was driving, looked like they were going to be able to put a few points on the board, but they were able to turn them away. Ninkovich is just one of the most underrated defenders, maybe in the National Football League. Talib put a great performance there. Didn't do a lockdown performance on Andre Johnson, but did enough so he was able to free things up. He worked mostly in man coverage, at least in my early experience, and he was able to free things up for some other guys to be able to operate, particularly McCourty. McCourty made that great play late.
And their chances next week against the Ravens on the same turf.
I think you got to feel good about it. This is not the same Baltimore team that we saw earlier in the season. This is not the same 31-30 game. We can go back and rewatch that game.
We will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you can throw a lot of that stuff out. That's the thing, because it happened so early in the season. Obviously, everyone remembers the replacement referees and the field goal that may or may not have been a field goal. So I think this sets up very nicely. This is one of the more underrated rivalries, I think, in the NFL. When you talk about the Patriots, you talk about the Ravens, there's a great deal of respect there. Don't get me wrong, but it's a great rivalry, and it should be a fantastic game.
And it should be a great week leading up to rematch number 2 of the playoffs for the New England Patriots. The Patriots take care of business, 41-28 over the Houston Texans. WEEI.com, Patriots columnist Chris Price. I'm Mike Petraglia, WEEI.com.